video, we'll show you how to convert your Smith Wesson Shield 9mm 7-round magazine to 8 rounds, or your 8-round magazine to 9 rounds, using the MagGuts spring system. Now make sure you wear safety glasses so that the spring doesn't come out and hit you in the eye. You'll need a tool such as, I'm going to use a narrow flathead screwdriver. You can use a punch or anything that will fit in the end of the magazine. So just push the tool into the end of the base plate and push it forward slightly. Keep your thumb over the end of the magazine so the spring doesn't fly out. Remove the base plate, the lock plate, spring and follower, which you can set aside because you won't need those. Okay, now after assembly, these converted magazines are extremely reliable. You just want to pay attention during assembly, make sure you get it right. Okay, the first step is to install the follower and the small spring. Stick it right in the bottom of the magazine there and leave the spring hanging out a little bit. The second thing you want to do is to inspect the large spring and connecting cup assembly. You want to make sure that connecting cup is seated all the way down inside of the large spring. You want to make sure that that connecting cup isn't sticking up like that. You want that connecting cup to be seated so that those little flanges are all right down against the top of the large spring. Okay, another thing you want to make sure, you do not want to assemble it like this with a small spring blind. Just try to put it together. So we'll leave the spring hanging out a little bit, and with the springs oriented like this, you've got the end of the small spring here and this is the end of the large spring. It doesn't look like it should go together like this, but that's how it goes. And when you put them together, you want to make sure that you don't catch the small spring on the end of the large spring connecting cup assembly like that, or even if you go in at a severe angle like this, you can catch the second loop on the top. You don't want to do that either. You just want to come straight in basically like this. Make sure that that connecting cup completely surrounds the small spring, and just push the assembly in with the large spring and maintain tension on it so that things don't move around during assembly. Now when it comes to the lock plate has a real small flange on one end here. You can see on this end there's a flange. That remains outside of the magazine during assembly. So you just compress the spring, locate the lock plate over the spring, and then once everything's in place, just slide the base plate right on until it snaps into place. Now this is the flange we were talking about on the lock plate. You can see that it remains outside the magazine even after assembly. Okay, now just want to note that if you're converting your 8-round magazine to 9 rounds and you use the small lock plate that we provide, it provides probably too much space because you can force a 10th round into the magazine, and we recommend that you don't operate the gun like that because you can have problems. So if you're converting your 8-round magazine to 9 rounds, we recommend that you install the factory Smith Wesson lock plate in the magazine during assembly. So when you're converting the 8-round magazine to 9 rounds, use the factory Smith Wesson lock plate. And when you're converting the 7-round magazine to 8 rounds, go ahead and use the provided thin metal lock plate so that you've got that space that you need in there. Okay, now all that's left is to make sure everything fits. Now the first time you load it, getting that last couple of rounds in is going to be a little bit difficult just because everything's not seated into place properly. It'll be a one-time thing. After you get all of the rounds into the magazine, the next time you load it, it'll actually be easier than loading the factory magazine. Another thing you want to do is once you've got everything together and fully loaded, you want to make sure that you've got plenty of space in here. You should be able to basically bury that round with the magazine loaded to where you can't see it anymore, like this. Okay. You just want to verify that it fits into the firearm. And we're done. We've converted the Smith Wesson Shield 9mm 7-round magazine to 8 rounds using the MagGuts spring system.